Welcome to another episode of today's great debate. Today's topic is: was dropping the atomic bomb on Japan justified? Let's hear from one of our guests. On one side, we have Justin, who believes it was justified, and the other side, we have me, Dez, who opposes this view. Let's start with you, Justin. Why do you believe dropping the atomic bomb was justified?
Thanks. Days. The decision of dropping the atomic bomb on Japan, specifically on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, was a difficult but necessary one. It was effectively ended World War II, saving countless lives that would have been lost if war had continued.
Thank you, Justin. I understand the argument about ending the war quickly, but the devastation caused by the atomic bombs cannot be ignored. The loss of innocent civilian lives, the long-term health consequences that these people face, and the environmental damage caused by the atomic bomb are all factors that cannot be justified, regardless of the circumstances.
I hear your concerns, but we have to consider the context of the time. The Allies faced a determined enemy in Japan, and traditional tactics provided ineffective. The atomic bomb was seen as the way to bring a swift and decisive end to the war, ultimately saving more lives in the long run.
I agree that situation was dire, but the decision to use such a devastating weapon should never be taken lightly. We must also acknowledge the ethical implications of targeting civilian populations. I mean, could you imagine just a completely non-targeted city in a sense like there's an army and they're shooting at us and we're shooting at them? No, we just nuke them. The kind of death and destruction, that must have happened on those days to be a person who's an innocent person living in this city, just being an innocent person, all of a sudden your life destroyed by this atomic bomb that you had nothing to do with. I mean, did you hear about that kid who was playing hide and seek with his friends, like outside of the blast? Like I think it was 3 miles away from Ground Zero. He was looking outside of a window, and he was playing hide and seek, counting to 10, and then all of a sudden he gets hit with the shockwave. Like that shit is crazy, dude.
But
And
if
then I like the ethical implications of targeting civilian populations, especially considering the long-term effects of radiation exposure. Like that lady who was like they what was it? I forgot her name, but they studied her until she was a woman, and then when she was a teenager or when she grew of age, they had her like go to this auditorium and take her clothes off, and all these doctors, like doctor pedophiles, were, like looking at her and shit. Like that's that's really that's terrible for them to like not only just the radiation exposure, but then she got uh like taken advantage of like that, and um the long term radiation exposure, and also, I just want to point this out. Hiroshima's population was 80% civilians, which means the United States was okay with mass genocide of innocent Japanese people.
yeah, I understand, but if the United States didn't drop the atomic bomb, do you think there was something else that we could have done?
Yeah, absolutely, I do think so. For example, diplomatic efforts, they should have been exhausted to seek a peaceful resolution. Um, Additionally, there was also signs that Japan was willing to surrender before the atomic bombs, making the use of the destructive force unnecessary.
But dropping the atomic bomb was still the best decision to end the war. The Allied leaders, including President Truman, were faced with difficult decisions: continue the costly and brutal war, or find a way to end it swiftly. And that's where the atomic bomb comes to play. The bombings were meant to shock the Japanese. So, in order to shock them, we need to create devastation. It's also noteworthy that the decision to use the atomic bomb was made in the context of war, where civilian casualties were already widespread. And yes, the losing civilian life in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were tragic. But it's important to consider the overall goal of ending the war to prevent further bloodshed.
Yes, to end the war and prevent further bloodshed, but you're willing to sacrifice the life of thousands of innocent people when that could have been avoided. A vast majority who were killed in Hiroshima, they were actually civilians, including children, little kids. Like I said, that kid that was playing hide and seek with his friends. They were part of the number that was killed, and um, they weren't combatants that were killed. An immense loss of civilian life that could have been avoided. By the summer of 1945, Japan was already on the brink of defeat. Uh, their military was their military capabilities were severely weakened, and the U.S. was constantly bomb raiding them over and over again. Um, we also had a chance to pursue diplomatic alternatives. Let me just have to drink real quick. We had a chance to pursue diplomatic alternatives that could have led to Japanese surrender. For example, we could have allowed for conditional surrender terms, or we could have even explored peace negotiations. Um, Also, the use of the atomic bomb set a very, very dangerous precedent for future conflicts. Like for the rest of our lives now, we're gonna be we're gonna be on the edge of the knife for life because we now know how to make such dangerous weapons like an atomic bomb. And while it's important to recognize the complexities of wartime decisions, we also gotta look at the uncomfortable truth that atomic bombs represent a grave violation of humanitarian principles. In hindsight, it's clear that the immense suffering inflicted upon the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki cannot be justified by any strategic or military rationale. It stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of war and the imperative to seek peaceful resolutions to conflicts whenever possible. And I think killing in any situation is never moral or should never be the answer. And it's just so tragic to think about that this could have been avoided.
But the Japanese also made it clear that they would fight to the last man, woman, and child. The Japanese in Saipan were committing mass suicide. I mean, killing the children and then killing themselves. That is how loyal these people were to Japan, and that's how far they were willing to go. There were millions of casualties on both sides. The Allies, the United States, were running out of time, and a decisive action was needed to end the war. Yes, I agree it was a horrific act of destruction, but achieved its intended purpose. Japan was shocked by the sheer power of the bomb and the devastation around it. By bringing a swift end to the war, the atomic bomb saved countless lives on both sides, averting the need for a full-scale invasion of Japanese that would have killed even more civilians and troops from the Allied and United States. Overall, the decision to drop the atomic bomb was justified. It was swift end to the war. It was a deterrence of further aggression. It saved Allied and Japanese lives, avoided prolonged suffering, preserved Allied resources, and it was a demonstration of power to the Soviet Union.
Yeah, but there's also a flip side to all that you just said. a swift end to the war, but at what cost? Millions of innocent lives, thousands of innocent lives. A deterrence of further aggression, but it could also raise aggression, as other countries now know how to create an atomic bomb, which puts us all on edge. And you say it avoided prolonged suffering, but this could have been achieved in other ways, like diplomatic extremities. So this is a diplomatic conditions. So this is a very debatable thing and topic, and it was a very pivotal moment in our history, and I think that we should we should look at both sides. We should look at both sides of this argument. There's firebombing. I mean, people that are against the bomb say that firebombing is not as bad as the radiation from an atomic bomb, but the two target cities would have been firebombed anyways. Japanese wouldn't quit, but on the other side, they would say that Japanese were going to quit. The invasion of Japan would have caused more casualties. On the other side, the deaths would have been mostly military, not civilian. So there's a
Japan
lot.
was warned to surrender and or face mass destruction, and they didn't even surrender. And but the thing was, Japan would surrender with the right terms. One bomb would have been used in Tokyo Harbor as a demo, and the bombs used to impress Soviet Union enough that they did not demand joint occupation of Japan. But civilians are scarred simply for power politics between the U.S. and the Soviet Union.
So there's two sides to this, pros and cons, for and against. There is really no clear cut answer of whether dropping the atomic bomb was justified or not. And yes, I think we both agree that killing innocent people is wrong.
But also that the not the nuke, the atomic bomb was necessary to end the war and to save our troops' lives.
Yeah, so this depends on which sides you look at it from. But I think we're running out of time here. The bell's about to ring. Lunch is about to happen. So it was a good debate. I think I've learned a lot. What have you learned that would help?
Uh, I think that I learned that about the nuke, how it's made, and just interesting stuff like that. And
Yeah, I learned from your side that um it would have prevented countless of lives. So like I said, there's always two sides to it, and it does. I think we both agree. We do both feel terrible for the innocent lives
the
that are
80
lost.
civilians that were
80%.
the 80% of civilians that were there.
But um, also for the countless lives that were saved in it. So yeah, really no clear cut answer. Thank you for listening to our debate podcast.